PixMix is brought to you by the Arrow Meta Show, broadcasted on Liberated Syndication, youtube.com/Arrow Meta Show, and is in association with the Old School Lane podcast.
PixMix is brought to you by oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with the Arrow Meta Show.
Welcome to PixMix, the show where we randomly review a Pixar film. My name is Aaron.
My name is Patricia.
Hey Patricia, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Summer's just approaching, and we're about a few weeks away from The Incredibles 2.
Absolutely, and I tell you what, everybody, we're actually doing take 2 of this at the moment because we accidentally didn't turn on the sound recorder when we first started doing this, so we were basically going to have basically a show of silence, pretty much.
Yes,
so.
We are professionals that way.
And I'm driving the show, so I've got no excuse, so can't really blame a producer in this particular situation. And so we're going to be doing a Pixar film, which I have to say is quite emotional in the third degree.
Yes, for all the people who have grown up with this particular franchise that's been going on for close to 15 years, it's a nice way to cap off the series, and for a lot of people, this is the best of the bunch.
And we're definitely not toying around.
So let's begin this story.
Actually, tell you what, before actually we do that, just to let everybody know, we do actually have a bit of, I guess, do have some related Pixar news. As of recording of this day, we've recently heard, for those of you who don't know, John Goodman, who was the one who voiced Sully in Monsters, Inc. and also in Monsters University, and we do have quite a bit of appreciation for him. We've just recently been announced by ABC that they've decided to cancel Roseanne, which he was a part of, and I mean, given the controversy that's stuck recently, we all love John Goodman, and he definitely did a good voice to Sully and everything, and it's quite sad really that a show that's had so much traction and basically is put him back into the spotlight. Now all of a sudden he's lost that all of a sudden. So it's
think about it. Think about this, Aaron. #1 show on ABC.
Yeah.
Right. And you're thinking, oh, this is going to be like this huge revival that. A lot of people loved Roseanne because unlike a lot of shows at the time in which it focused on like second-class families that had good jobs and all the like, Roseanne was very relatable to a lot of people, in which it focused on a working class family that went through everyday struggles. And sure, the series pretty much got worse as time went on. And then the reboot pretty much had to retcon the last season in which, the family ended up rich. And then it turns out that it was all just a dream. And that from the previous season where Dan had a heart attack actually happened. So... Yeah. I'm really mixed about this. On the one hand, I'm glad that the show is canceled because of all the stupid controversies that was going on, and ABC knew that if they kept having a show like this going, then it was going to ruin their reputation. But on the other hand, once again, #1 show on ABC, and hundreds of people lost their jobs because of one person.
Yeah, it's just sad that so many people have been affected just because Roseanne Barr can't keep her fucking mouth shut. It's like it just goes to show as well. It kind of makes me wonder, and I mean, this is probably me clutching at straws. But do you think there might have been? Do you remember that show? What was it called? Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. On
yes.
If you remember that show, and the main, I guess you could say the main protagonist, he died during production. If you remember
John Ritter, who played as the dad, he passed away due to a slight heart problem, and then they replaced him with David Spade. So I don't know if they're going to do the same thing in which maybe they can kill off Roseanne's character and then keep the show going. I mean, they have done it before, like, for example, in 2.5 Men, when Charlie Sheen was going through a ton of controversy, they killed off his character too and then replaced him with somebody else. So I mean, it is possible. I mean, but as of right now, the show has been canceled.
Yeah, it's just it's a, and I just feel bad for John Goodman. If anything,
Hmm.
he's had this opportunity to kind of come back into the big light, and now all of a sudden that's kind of been taken away from him very suddenly. And I guess the next time we're probably going to cross ways is that if they decide to do a proper sequel to Monsters Inc. You know,
Yeah, either that or and since it has been confirmed that Kingdom Hearts 3 does have a Monsters Inc. world, I don't know if they brought back John Goodman to do the voice of Sully or they have somebody else, but most likely chance because of, being consistent with voice actors, they probably will bring back John Goodman to voice as Sully for the video game.
yeah. But I thought that was just a bit of news because I know people are going to be asking questions about it, and it's going to be a couple of days away since till the Arameta show actually airs. So I thought maybe we might as well just address it now and maybe talk about it at a later date. So
Hmm.
anyway, let's shall we get on with the main event?
Let's do so.
When I first heard about Toy Story 3, it was wedged between Up and Cars 2, and so you could definitely tell that Pixar was going for a very bad period at the time. And so, when I first heard about Toy Story 3, I really thought it was just basically just going to be, okay, let's just put some familiar characters out there, just keep us going. And but no, it was actually, would you believe, a very well timed and definitely a film that reminds us that Pixar could actually still can actually still do good, and also with with the source material without making it feel old. And
Yeah, I remember when I first heard about this movie, and I remember that a lot of people were really excited about it because after Up, there was an announcement of a third Toy Story movie, and I remember the plot. The plot was is that Andy was grown up and he was going to go to college, and we kind of knew this from the beginning that this was eventually going to happen because remember in Toy Story 2, this was brought up when the prospector talked about what if Andy grows up and you are and he's too old to play with you. What are you going to do? So it always has been in the back of our minds that this was going to happen. And then afterwards, there's been a lot of talks of what the plot was going to be about, a lot of talks of the new characters, a lot of the new actors who are going to be in the movie. And I remember that a lot of people got really excited. You have to understand that this has been like 15 years since the original Toy Story and 10 years since Toy Story 2. So for a generation of kids, they grew up with this. And at that point in time, they were introducing to a brand new generation. And I remember there were a lot of interesting scenes that eventually got cut off from the movie. Like the first thing that I do remember for sure that they featured as a promotional art was in the beginning of the movie, there was a whole bunch of Buzz Lightyear toys that were being recalled from a toy store. And, Buzz Lightyear was no longer in popularity, but then they scrapped that over for the montage that we had. And you know what? That's a very clever idea. And I'll discuss about that a little bit later.
yeah.
So,
And so, because
yeah, go ahead.
that was the original pitch, wasn't it, for Toy Story 3? That was when, the Pixar was not actually going to be doing the next Toy Story sequel, from what I understand. There was that studio that they'd set up, wasn't it?
That's correct. And
Yeah.
we did talk about that in The Good Dinosaur. And that, they were going to be doing a whole bunch of movies separate from Disney. And they were all going to be various, sequels to previous movies as well as new ones. One of them was Newt. For those who don't know, it was a movie about two newts who grew up in a lab and they're the last of their kind and they have to. Procreate, otherwise the species will be gone. And that movie was scrapped because another movie from Blue Sky Studios called Rio came out, and then they pretty much said, oh, we don't want to compare, so they scrapped it. Then we already talked about in The Good Dinosaur that there was a lot of issues with that as well. Then there was also Monsters Inc. 2, which would have been the sequel to Monsters Inc. And then Finding Nemo 2, which would have also been a sequel, which we don't know what that would have been about. And then this one, Toy Story 3. And we did talk about just previously about that, all the Buzz Lightyears were being recalled, and all of the Buzz Lightyears were being malfunctioning, and it was up to the toys to find out what they can do to be able to, to help them out. And yeah, basically they just scrapped that idea and they wanted to start over from scratch.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I mean, we usually save these stats for before we score the film, but I think we have to basically address this now. This is Pixar's highest-grossing film of all time.
Yeah, and there's a reason for it because I mean, not only is it a great sequel to to a trilogy that a lot of people loved, but it's also, like we mentioned in Cars 2, that how it is Cars 2 was like a poor example of introducing, the people to the first movie, and then Cars 3, it just like continue off from it, and we didn't know how it like all began. Toy Story 3, you can go into this movie and you don't even have to watch the previous two movies in order for you to enjoy it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what though, it's like looking at this. I mean, obviously we'll get into the story just in a bit after we're doing the short film. But I mean, would you compare this Toy Story 3 to like Michael Jackson's Thriller? Like, it'll be the movie that they'll never ever do again. Like, this is how big Pixar can get. I mean, can you really see them doing something as big as this?
Well, they're gonna try again with Toy Story 4.
Well, I wonder about that. Well, anyway, we'll get into that a little bit later on, but so we'll talk about the short film first. So the short film was Day and Night, which
I love this short. I have to let you know right off the bat, this is my favorite Pixar short.
Yeah, and it's actually this is where Teddy Newton makes his directorial debut, and he actually did some incredible work on The Incredibles and Ratatouille.
Yes.
So he's one of my favorite producers, pretty much. So I was very excited when I knew that he was making this, and hey, it was good. I definitely definitely urge everyone to check it out. And it's very revolutionary in it as well, because it uses a combination of 2D and 3D visuals to tell the happenings of what's going on in the short. So you have the personification of daytime that meets its opposite nighttime, and obviously chaos ensues, and they have to realize
it's so
that.
incredibly clever. You see the pros and the cons of day and night, and you see them bickering towards one another, and then they get along, and then they just come together. It's so perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's so great. This combination of this film and this short, even the short has its own awards. When you think it was nominated for a Academy Award itself for Best Animated Short Film, it won the Visual Society Award, the Annie Award, and also won an International 3D Society Award.
Wow,
it's that good. It's probably the best short they probably produced.
Absolutely. I agree.
And coming in front of probably the best movie they produced.
It is like the Paperman of Pixar shorts.
Mm-hmm. So after that, we get into the film itself, and so we get the opening scene, and obviously it's a massive dramatization of one of Andy's playtimes. And so, what did you think about the whole, the fact that there's the train, and like there's the orphan dolls, and like then there's also the evil Dr. Porkchop.
It's brilliant because it's a combination of the two play sessions that Andy had from the first two movies. The first one, it starts off with Mr. Potato Head playing as the robber, robbing the train of orphans in a and Buzz and Woody and Jesse go after him. And then the second one involves with evil Dr. Porkchop in his blimp, taking down and dropping the huge, monkeys, the barrel of monkeys. That was from the second movie. And so the fact that they were able to culminate it together so well, and again, if you have never seen Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2, it looks like a lot of fun. It brings you into what Andy sees in these toy planes. But if you have seen the first two movies, and if you grew up with them, this is a huge nostalgia bomb that perfectly lines up with how the movie is going to be throughout the course of the film. And the fact that they actually introduced Andy while he's still young playing with his toys in that amazing montage with You Got a Friend in Me from the first movie, it sets everything up amazingly. This is a prime and perfect example on how to introduce a new audience to another installment of a movie, as well as giving nostalgia and throwbacks to a movie that a lot of people grew up with. Cars 2 and 3 should have taken note about this.
I think you're taking the words right out of my mouth. I think it was a great setup for people who were new to the film. This is the great thing about Toy Story 3. Do you really need to watch the other two to kind of appreciate Toy Story 3?
Absolutely not. And that's what makes it great because it could have easily been a continuation that maybe would have lost a lot of fans because hey, it's been 10 years since Toy Story 2 and 15 years since Toy Story 3. They could have just thrown in like a long continuation where Andy goes to college and then he leaves and then, the toys are talking about like how the good times they've had. That's something like Cars 3 did in which, oh, I talked about me being a great racer and all the other younger cars are saying, oh, you used to be a great racer, I looked up to you, but now you're just old. So yeah, Toy Story 3 starts off amazingly with that amazing sequence mixing together two of the play stories that Andy had from the first two movies, and then we had the montage, and it's fantastic. It's like the first 10 minutes of Up, or the halfway point of Wall-E, in which you have like perfect cinematography that just draws you into the story and the movie right away.
So obviously we get the whole playtime obviously is then told in real time in the in like video camera form, and then you see him grow up, and then we get to basically the present day where Andy is packing up and getting ready to go to college, and obviously you get to see the the toys are still trying to like get Andy to kind of play with him. And it's obviously that is a quite touching bit because you realise it's the last ditch attempt to try and make themselves relevant, and when it comes to the point where they realise this is it, and then they kind of just explain, everyone has basically started to get sold away in the yard sales and things like that, and even the bit when, mind you, the bit when they say that Bo Peep is gone, it's like if you were. If they put in like a scene where you had like Bo Peep somewhat appreciated, I think within the first few minutes, even though it would have been kind of strange because all of a sudden it'd be like, oh, she's there in the beginning and then all of a sudden she's gone. Like unless you've watched the other two films, you don't really the Bo Peep line doesn't really hit you, does it? That she's gone.
Right, exactly, and also the likes of Etch and Slinky. I mean, not Slinky. Etch and Wheezy. That's what I meant to say. So Etch was the Etch-a-Sketch, and Wheezy was the penguin toy from the second movie. And there were also, important minor characters in the Toy Story lore. But I guess this is kind of one minor thing to point out for kids who may have not watched Toy Story 1 and 2. They would know who these characters are, so it doesn't leave that strong of an impact. So yeah, I mean, for all the things that Toy Story 3 does well as a standalone film, that definitely should have been tweaked a little bit better. Like maybe, maybe like during the montage, like maybe, maybe Andy is going to be, clearing out his room of everything that he wants to get rid of, and maybe one of the dolls was Bo Peep. So, or maybe we could have had a flashback, maybe with Bo Peep being involved or something. So I don't know, but. Yeah, I guess that's one thing that we could point out, but it's pretty minor in comparison.
So obviously we also get introduced to Barbie gets a pretty big role in this, even though she's just a side character, and I don't know, it's like, do you think there was a part that you believe that this was if I was interested to see how she ended up getting quite the role that she did along with Ken in this
remember
film.
that Barbie was introduced in Toy Story 2, but it was a different Barbie. It was a tour guide Barbie.
Yeah.
And Jodie Benson, who not only plays Barbie but also plays Ariel in The Little Mermaid, she was interviewed in a panel at a convention, and she was talking about like how John Lasseter wanted her to be Barbie, and she did a lot of improv for that scene in Toy Story 2 when they're like taking the toys around and showing the view of Al's Toy Barn, and how I think John Lasseter really liked how Jodie portrayed as Barbie so well that he decided to make her into a major character.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that she decided to voice Barbie. Obviously, being a Disney film, obviously, I guess I shouldn't be too surprised.
She's a huge Disney alum. Not only was she Ariel, but she was also.
But what I mean is that the Barbie outside of Disney, Barbie just in general, like Barbie's had she's had computer games, she's had she's had her own series, she's had like all these other like animated things with like various voice actors. Like I would have thought that Barbie might have been a bit too generic for her, if you think.
I can understand that, but to be fair, I think in concept, it would have been that way. In which, like Barbie's, like she has like 1,000, accessories and personalities that it could have just become incredibly generic. But the fact that she was, originally Molly's doll, and she was being just tossed aside, going over to the preschool, and then she starts developing as a character from somebody who was pretty much like neglected to falling in love with Ken, and then she becomes a pretty badass protagonist, like much later on toward the series, in which she wants to find out what happened to her friends. So yeah, they could have completely like made a whole bunch of jokes about Barbie being pretty and trying a whole bunch of dresses and stuff like that, but surprisingly, it's done really, really well.
Hmm. So we obviously get to the point where the toys have obviously given up on Andy now. They just kind of accepted that they got to move on, and so they finally see this opportunity to kind of move on to either go to a yard sale or obviously go on to basically where they would be going to, which is Sunnyside daycare. And I mean, what do you think of the that kind of that transition that they went from finally moving on and then going over to
we all knew this was going to happen. Well, we all knew this was going to happen eventually, because once again, what a clever thing about this movie is that all of this was hinted at in Toy Story 2 about they knew that that Andy was going to be old enough and that they were no longer going to be played anymore, whether it be going up into the attic or being sold away at a yard sale. They knew that they were going to stick together no matter what. And that's pretty much it. I mean, they wanted to head over to the attic, and they thought at first, because Andy was like, moving, they thought that we were going to be thrown away into the garbage, and it was just the fact that Andy grabbed the wrong bag by mistake, because he was helping Molly out with bringing something, bringing some boxes downstairs so that they can give it over to the daycare. So all the toys, with the exception of Woody, is being put into the bag and head up to the attic. Well, Andy decides to take Woody with him to college. And the toys think that Andy threw them out, but in reality, he was going to take them up to the attic. Mm-hmm. And so they decided that they were going to go into the box where Andy's mom had put the toys in for daycare, and they were just going to leave because they thought, hey, Andy was going to throw us out anyway. Would we rather be rotting in a dump, or would we be in a daycare center, or would we be played forever by a bunch of kids? And that's actually a really logical thought process. It's not forced whatsoever. It makes a lot of sense why they would think that they were being thrown out, because it was in a black garbage bag. They can't see what's going on. So yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense.
We also get the gag that Mrs. Potato Head loses her eye, and obviously she can see what's going on, and so that kind of keeps the link between the house and the rest of the toys in the film, so they know what's going on in that regard. Mind you, that's kind of freaky. That it's like, how does that work? Like the fact
I have no idea. That is kind of freaky. I don't know. Is the eye kind of like a portal dimension to wherever that you leave it around? I don't know.
I still wonder if it. Are we still going on the theory that the Toy Story series takes place like after WALL-E?
I mean, it could be a possibility. I mean, it could be in the same universe as Cars, in which they're anthropomorphic objects that come to life. So yeah, whatever theory that you decide on where the universe of of Toy Story comes in, then be my guest.
Yeah, how weird would that be? It's like, I was like, oh, hey, we're going to go to California. It's like, oh, no, sweetheart, we don't go to California anymore. The cars are there. It's like, oh, man, that's a one screwed up world we talk about. So we get to Sunnyside, and obviously it's portrayed as this this kind of like this paradise for like kids' toys and things like that. And then we're introduced to Lotso Hugging Bear, also known as Lotso. And I think I love this antagonist because he is an understandable antagonist. And
very much so. He's like the prospector, in which he starts off really nice, and then when you get to the core on why he's so angry and why he is the way he is, it's understandable.
Yeah. Would you say he's better than the Prospector?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let's see. We didn't know too much about the Prospector's backstory until, like, literally towards the end. With Lotso, it's a little bit more developed because we actually get to see the backstory.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's actually a bit of a mix because the prospector, I would argue, has a much more sadder backstory because he was never played at all. He was in a toy store and seen every other toy being sold while he just stood there, and that was pretty much it.
But
Well,
obviously Lotso
Lotso,
was replaced.
well, yeah, well, Lotso was replaced. He knew what being loved was like by an owner, and he had two friends alongside him, which we'll talk about in a minute. But yeah, I mean, he was rejected by by an owner that he loved. Well, the prospector never had anything like that, so it's a toss up. I mean, you could either choose one or the other, but yeah, I would argue that Lotso is a little bit more developed than the prospector, and it's very understandable about why he is the way he is in terms of wanting to treat various toys certain ways, and why he controls Sunnyside the way he's doing it.
Yeah,
So
because I would think if the prospector was more visually developed and was more and we heard more about it instead of basically just being a line in the in near to the third act, I think I would definitely say that the prospector would probably be a stronger antagonist than I think probably than Lotso would be. The fact that Lotso had that story behind him and had that more development, because I think you have more anger towards the world. I think than I think the prospect has more reason to be angry at the world than Lotso had. I think
yeah,
if anything, Lotso was funnily enough throwing his toys out the pram, if anything, and saying that this is the way the world is and things like that. Whether he could have. I think Lotso had more had an opportunity, I think, to take a different view on what had happened compared to the prospector, who had no choice in what was going on because he was locked in a box, basically, tortured pretty much with everything that was going on around him, and couldn't do nothing about it until
right.
obviously the what's his name
Al,
Al came into his life. So
right.
yeah. So obviously he gets henchman, which is obviously Big Baby, and also he gets the Ken doll as well as people who work in his
Yes,
inner
Ken,
circle.
voiced by Michael Keaton, by the way.
Yeah, and it's a good fit. I think Ken definitely and Ken and Barbie are definitely you can definitely tell they're Ken and Barbie.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, because they just have that immediate chemistry with one another.
Yeah, I would say that are they probably the best portrayal of Ken and Barbie at this point?
Absolutely, because we have all those like generic Barbie movies, and they have Ken as like this blank slate, always like he's kind of like the male equivalent of Barbie, in which he also loves to accessorize, and he has various personalities, like very similar to Barbie. But yeah, this is hands down the best Barbie and Ken portrayed in any source of media ever.
Oh, but and they do that to death, don't they? You got Ken in the house, and he's trying on different outfits during like obviously we're just skipping a bit forward here, but during like the whole distraction scene. In that, when they're trying to escape the daycare, and he's accessorizing to hell in all of that.
But at the same time, it is really clever because of the fact that Ken has been around for at least the 60s or 70s, and the fact that it's basically like a male Barbie, a male companion, and who has a whole bunch of other clothes and accessories and many versions. It would make a lot of sense why we had to have at least a particular scene at that.
Mm-hmm. So so Woody reluctantly leaves, and he escapes Sunnyside using a kite, but obviously ends up losing his hat and getting stuck in a tree. He's found. He's found by a little girl who's Bonnie Anderson, and he ends up getting taken to her house and ends up in a different load of toys. And so,
by the way, if you look at one of the toys that Bonnie has, it's what you call it? One of them is Totoro from My Neighbor Totoro, the Hayao Miyazaki movie.
Oh, okay then. Yeah, I'll have to. You know what? It's one of those I'm gonna have to Google because I can't remember who he.
Yeah,
I know who it is. Yeah, Studio
Yeah.
Ghibli's My Neighbor Totoro. I got it.
Yeah, so it's actually really clever because John Lasseter was good friends with Hayao Miyazaki, and he was the reason why a lot of his movies were being distributed on Disney in the first place. So
Was that during the time that Studio Ghibli movies were starting to get produced by Disney? I think it was. Was it in that? Was it in that?
That's a good. I mean, I guess so. I mean, at least a lot more because I believe we already had some of that like in the '90s, like with we did have like sparse of them, like Kiki's Delivery Service and Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle. But I think like around when Lasseter was like basically like helping Disney out with their funk, and he allowed Miyazaki to come by and help produce it. I think that this is when they were doing the new dubs because I think that the old dubs of the movies, I think they were done by the Weinstein Company.
We also got quite a few Easter eggs in this in Toy Story 3, and there is a plenty of them. And it's not just Toronto. So we actually get to see Mary again, aka Boo from Monsters Inc. In a more grown-up scene. And I was saying before, it's like I looked at her and I thought she could carry a film. Like, definitely do if they definitely go for a Monsters Inc. sequel, you could definitely use her.
Sure.
Even more grown-up version of her or something like that. It kind of. I don't know. I looked at that. And I looked at that model and like I know they put these things in all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to do things, but it did make me look at that and think, are they thinking of doing more Monsters Inc. stuff? At that time.
Maybe it was around the time of the Disney Seven Circle. When they were at that company and they were going to produce all those sequels to the movies like Monsters Inc. 2 and Finding Nemo 2.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just like leftover Easter eggs that just never came to pass.
Mm-hmm. So we also get the obviously
right before I just we go any further. So what do you think of the other toys like? Like for example, like Mr. Prinkle Pants and Trixie and Dolly and Buttercup.
I gotta be honest, this might be pretty hard to say, but they're not. I can't really remember them all that well. In that.
I mean, I do know that Mr. Prickle Pants, he's a very Shakespearean kind of like hedgehog who has lederhosen, and Dolly is like literally a doll, but just has this like woman voice by Bonnie Hunt.
I think this becomes. I mean, I definitely say that this is the weakness in the film. I think. Don't you feel like there's sometimes in this now there's character overload? Like there's loads and loads of characters in this, and it's not
my favorite out of the bunch is definitely Trixie because of course she's voiced by Kristen Schaal, who can do no wrong. I've been marathoning through Bob's Burgers lately, and her as Louise is absolutely amazing. And also she was Mabel in Gravity Falls, so this would have been around the same time. So I take it that when she was doing Gravity Falls, she was also called in to do Toy Story 3 as well.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's the thing I would say about this. And apologies to everybody if I can't, there's like, oh, this is really fantastic character. How can you not remember him? It's like, I just can't. It's like, it's my main focus is kind of like, on the main story itself, really, and the main characters and everything. And so
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. So so obviously we get the situation where they finally find out that Sunnydale is not the daycare that everyone. Sorry, Sunnyside. How did I come with Sunnydale?
I don't know.
I think of Dimsdale, maybe. I don't know. But anyway,
yeah,
Sunnyside. Sunnyside is not the utopia that everyone thinks it is, and Lotso has actually transformed the place into like a massive toy prison, and he's putting toys in that he doesn't like, or toys that he seems to have a problem with in the hands of kids who don't treat them very well, or who aren't appropriate for their age. So obviously they get roughed around and things like that, and that's one of the scenes you get in to start off with, because they give them to like who is it what's their version of what's age range did they give them to? Again,
they give them over to like the 2 or 3 year olds, and and they are being transported over to the caterpillar room, while the older kids go to the butterfly room.
Mm-hmm. So they're in the caterpillar room, and obviously it's absolute hell in that place.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It's a real nightmare. It's like paint and jumping around and sticking things into your nose. One of the girls actually licks Buzz's helmet. It's just nasty.
It is awful, isn't it? And also about that as well, like the point when they can't escape, and obviously they're locked away, and so like that, if they try and escape, that monkey. That guy that does all the guards around the security system, that's a creepy thing.
Yeah, that is a very scary monkey.
Yeah, and I don't. There was quite a when they finally like grab him and like tie him up and stuff. There was quite a there was a bit of a there was a lot of satisfaction in that. I'm really glad they came up with a character who you really wanted to see his ass get kicked.
Yeah.
Like in that.
And yeah, basically Woody, while he's having fun with all of Bonnie's toys, he learns from Chuckles, who was previously from Sunnyside and who knew Lotso. This is when we learn about the backstory of them, and that's when Chuckles tells the story about that monkey, about that. Security is everywhere, and if the monkey screams and yells and hits its cymbals, then you are caught. And that's basically like the main rule, because Woody is thinking about going back to Sunnyside, and he's saying to himself, he's saying to Woody that you're absolutely insane because nobody has ever escaped Sunnyside, but Woody's going to try because he knows that his friends are in danger. So yeah, another thing that I really do like is that we get another focus on Buzz again, and it kind of like that scene in which it reverts him back to his factory setting, and he turns into what Buzz was like in the first movie, in which he was all about protecting the universe from evil Emperor Zurg, and that anybody who was against his goal were basically enemies, and that was pretty scary right there.
Yeah, kind of remind me of Ashi from Samurai Jack.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of remind me like that. In the season finale when Aku regains control of her, and obviously she has him kick Samurai Jack's ass.
Yes.
And, yeah, it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. And like, so you got Lotso sort of making control of Buzz. Mind you, I'd be interested to see how he learned about that. I don't think that was ever explained. I don't think how he knew that's what what you needed to do in order to reprogram Buzz Lightyear. Yeah.
Well, I guess because they've known Buzz for so long that they did read the manual, and I guess.
Oh, okay, then there we go. So, I'm probably still stuck in Home Improvement where real men don't need instructions.
Right, real men don't need manuals and instructions. So give me a break.
Yeah. So. You have to I'm going to some kind of stereotype there. Oh dear. So, what do you think of the escape scene?
It's actually pretty cool. I really enjoyed the escape scene, and it really gets your blood pumping and your tension high as to like how are they going to escape. And we already discussed earlier about how Chuckles talks about the monkey and about like all the different ways of that the other toys try to escape, but it didn't work. And so, they had not only the monkey, but they also have other toys flashing their lights and they're standing guard. And you're thinking about like how they're going to escape. And especially since when they tried bringing Buzz back, from his original setting to his current setting, then he starts speaking in Spanish and starts going around like a flamenco dancer.
Yeah, I still remember when Mr. Potato Head, takes himself apart and then puts himself back together in the form of what was it, pita bread or something like that?
Yeah, like a pita bread or like a burrito or something. Yeah, this was like. God, this must have been like over a decade before Pickle Rick.
Like, Pickle Rick!
Pickle Rick!
So, obviously they put Buzz into Spanish mode, and I thought this was actually not going to go over very well, I thought. But no, actually, everyone got like a massive buzz out of it, surprisingly enough. So, everyone seems to like that.
Yeah, and I guess the reason why they wanted to escape was because when Mrs. Potato Head figured out that she can able to close out her eye, and when she looked through the hole, she sees her other eye, and then she finds out that Andy is actually looking for them because, his mom accidentally like threw away the bag that he was going to take up into the attic, and now he's really concerned, and so they have to go back home right before Andy leaves for college.
Yeah, so I'm really glad they let that plot device in because it obviously leaves that. That it obviously gives them motivations to actually go back now. So
yes, it's very similar to WALL-E, in which the reason why we have to go back to Earth is not because they needed to put the plant in the ground and let it grow, is because WALL-E is dying. He was crushed, and Eve needs to program the plant to send the coordinates back to Earth so that she can repair him again.
Yeah, I just don't think it would have been strong enough, basically, just to randomly go back to Andy's house. I just think
Yeah.
they needed something there, and I'm really glad they put something in.
Yeah, because they weren't intending on going back to Andy's in the first place because they
No.
thought that he threw them out.
hmm So, obviously, Barbie and Ken are forced to remain behind, and having been thrown into the rear of the truck, a small TV falls on Buzz, resetting him back to his normal self, with no memory of what happened in the whole thing. So, and then they, obviously, I think there was a confrontation before that, and
Yeah, there was a confrontation
yeah,
just when they were heading over towards the dumpster. Lotso is already there, and he knew all along that that they were going to escape because the telephone that Woody saw earlier in Sunnyside actually spilled the beans on them, and he was beaten up pretty badly.
Yeah, and then obviously they get the bit where obviously the big baby, obviously they managed to get him to basically turn on Lotso at that point. And I thought getting to explain the whole backstory, and obviously I don't know, like it was kind of like the monologue, which obviously is since the Incredibles, even the Incredibles made fun of the monologue of the villain. When you think about it, and so it's kind of weird to kind of see it here, but I guess it's necessary to kind of get you to sympathise with where the villain, where Lotso comes from. So,
Sure.
that was so. I guess that was necessary at the end of the day.
I mean,
So,
after all, none of the other toys knew about that, with the exception of Woody.
so then we get to the landfill. And
Yes.
that's it's probably the this scene in regards to that. I mean, I liked how they're desperate to try and it's their time of it's kind of like their version of going to hell, pretty much. Like this is where they
basically their version of going to hell. It's the brave little toaster's equivalent of going over to the dumpster and being crushed by the machine. Basically like that.
yeah. Is it paying homage to the brave little toaster?
I wouldn't be surprised because I do know that somebody who worked on that movie also worked on Pixar for a few years, I think. I don't remember, but I do know that somebody from Brave Little Toaster was also in Cal Arts because the room that the boy lived, that the inanimate objects were looking for, is A113, which is the room where Cal Arts is. So, yeah.
Cool. So obviously we have that scene, and then Lotso obviously manages to get saved by climbing on there, but then obviously he betrays the rest of the toys and runs off for himself. And then we obviously get the emotional scene where they're about to go into the incinerator, and they all hold hands and accept their fate. And everybody was getting emotional over it. I could see some people crying. I could see some people kind of gasping because they thought this was going to be the end. And I just kind of sat there and thought, this is not going to be the end. Seriously,
I mean, I don't think it's like them going to be the end. It's like that they thinking. I think that it's about the emotion. It's not about that. It's not about that. We knew they were going to die, but they thought that. Oh, we're going to die, and let's hold on to each other together right before, we're incinerated. It's like, we knew these characters for so long, and we thought that they were going to be, like, turned into dust.
Yeah.
And the fact that, they were holding each other together, and they were closing their eyes, and they knew that they were, going to die, and that they were going to take it and not try to run away because it was inevitable. I think that the fact that we knew about these characters for so long, and the fact that we grew attached to them, I think that was the reason why a lot of people got emotional, because they didn't want this to happen to them, because they didn't want them to go. So I think that's partly what it is. And besides, I mean, we knew that Lotso was gone. We had no idea that the aliens from Toy Story 2 was going to save them. Because they were taken away by the truck earlier, so they were just like ran over. We didn't think that they were going to come back, and it's actually a really nice callback because in the second movie, Mr. Potato Head saved them from falling off on the window, but in the third movie, the aliens saved all of the toys by controlling the crane, which they called the claw from the first movie.
And I tell you what, that is a massively good reference to the first film, in regards to the claw. And I'm really glad they threw that in there. And even on its own, like even if you didn't know about the claw in the first movie, it's still a pretty good, still a pretty epic scene. Watching these getting all pulled up from that time, and. Yeah, so Lotso tries to make his escape, but then gets captured by a garbage man who then straps him to the front of his garbage truck and told you better keep your mouth closed. So yeah, I would say he got what he deserved. Pretty much.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that he was just strapped in there and he's surrounded by a whole bunch of other toys that are like all mangled and dirty and just it's definitely like, I mean, like I said, it's a toss up between who deserved the worst outcome. Was it the prospector when he saw that he was going to be drawn at and by the Barbie, or was it Lotso, in which he's going to be tied up into a truck with a whole bunch of other dirty toys and having bugs crawling all over him?
So,
I think that Lotso is the worst one, hands down.
I tell you what, how dark would it have been if Lotso had suffered the same fate as Shredder from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and they shoved him in the back of the garbage truck and crushed him?
That would have been awful.
I don't know. Would that have gone too far? I think for a Disney death.
I mean, to go from your toys are about to be incinerated to go inside the shredder.
I don't know. It's like given that we've had Gaston fall thousands of feet to his death. We've had what other death? Gruesome death.
Let's see, Sykes from Oliver and Company being run over by a subway train. We've had let's see, Clayton
being hung by vines and
let's see.
I'm sure there's far more brutal deaths than being crushed in a garbage truck that Disney had given us.
Ursula from The Little Mermaid jammed with a giant.
I remember that
the
one.
Ship. Let's see what Jafar being turned into the snake, and then Aladdin stabs him with a sword.
Well, that wasn't really a death. I mean, he was. Because what happened to Jafar? He got turned into the genie. Obviously, got locked in his lamp.
He's stuck in the lamp forever. If you don't count the sequels, but we're not talking about that.
We don't talk about that.
There's a lot of brutal Disney deaths.
Yeah, there are, and so I don't think. I think I would probably say, I guess maybe putting Lotso in crushing him in the garbage truck might be a bit too far. So I guess strapping him to the front of it, I think probably might have been the best call to call.
Sure.
So then we go from one emotional scene to another emotional scene, and that is
before we go over to that, did you know that the guy driving the garbage truck
was Sid?
Was Sid?
Yeah.
Yes.
How crazy is that? It's like mind you, someone had to point that out to me. Even you've had to point that out to me for me to remember it, because when I first saw the character, I just thought, oh, it's just some random rock. Stereotype, but then when someone said, "Oh, hey, that's Sid from the previous thing," it's like, really? It's like did he even get the same voice actor for him? Did he even?
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know.
Yeah, it would be funny if he picked up his garbage and Andy was and he just kind of met Andy and he said, "Oh, hey, Andy." It's just kind of had that moment.
Did he really know Sid? Because we never even see them meet up face to face.
No, I just think I just thought it would just be interesting to have them have a what's up kind of conversation.
Sure, I guess so. That's not important. But we do get the toys coming back and they get inside the box and Andy is relieved seeing them again. And so, then he decides that he's going to go over to Bonnie's house and he's going to donate all of his toys to her.
Yeah. How did he know Bonnie? I can't remember how did that happen.
Remember, the reason why he knew Bonnie was because I guess they're old friends, because Andy's mom knew Bonnie's mom, and they did know each other, but I guess I guess Bonnie's mom knew Andy from when he was a little kid, because it was clear that she hasn't seen him in ages. So I guess they're like acquaintances, and she kind of knew Bonnie because she was in Sunnyside.
Oh, I see. So that's the thing. So then we get this another emotional scene where this actually the critics actually had a mixed view of this, and maybe I guess I'm in somewhat of agreement with them, because those who had seen the sequel, had seen Toy Story 1 and Toy Story 2, they were emotional about it, but those who were reviewing it with a fresh mind, they just thought it was goofy when they were looking at it. And I guess I can see their point of view, but come on, let's face it. This scene, I think, was the closure scene for those who had basically followed the Toy Story lore, from the beginning up to the end.
What? I mean, if the Toy Story series would have ended right here, it would have been absolutely perfect, because we do know that the toys are going to be just fine with Bonnie, and that even though that they're going to miss Andy, they know that Andy is going to be off in college doing bigger and better things. And we did get a couple of shorts, and we do, a few shorts with, Buzz Lightyear and meeting up with, those like dinosaur toys from the 80s. And we did talk about the Ken and Barbie Hawaiian adventure. And there were a couple of other shorts too. And, if they would have continued with that, I would have had no issues.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting a Toy Story 4 next year.
Yeah, we are. And this one focuses, I believe, on Woody and Bo Peep, from what I recall.
So basically, we do know that Bo Peep was given away. And the whole journey is about Woody and the rest of the gang trying to find Bo Peep so that they can bring her back.
Yeah.
So I have no idea how they're going to do this.
I have no idea how they're going to do it either. But I really hope that at least the what they base it on is going to basically click. Because if it doesn't, everyone's just going to be kind of sitting there at the screen and like thinking, well, so Pixar got our money, so let's all go.
Yeah, this was a complete waste of time. It'll be like Monsters University all over again, in which it was just so unnecessary that it didn't need to exist.
Yeah. So, all of this cost them $200 million, which is kind of like standard pretty much for Pixar at this point, and would you believe it, it took over $1 billion at the box office.
That's insane. I remember because, I was one of those people who saw the movie twice, because I saw it once by myself, and then I saw it another time with a friend, and we just absolutely went crazy for it. I usually don't see movies more than once, but when I go to a movie more than once, I enjoy it very much so. I only have done it a handful of times.
I'll be honest. I've only ever seen the only time I've ever seen a Pixar movie twice has to be Inside Out.
Yeah. Inside Out was one of them. I saw the Avengers twice. I saw Shrek 4 times.
4 times.
Okay. I have a story about this. I went to see Shrek. One was a field trip.
Yeah.
The other one was with my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
The third time was with my friends. And then the fourth time was by myself.
Yeah. So actually, well, I'm not one to criticize in regards to seeing what movies multiple times. Do you know? I'm actually ashamed to actually admit this in front of everybody. But do you know what film I went to go see twice in my life? Dunstan Checks In.
Wow!
Oh,
really?
I know.
That movie about the kid with the chimpanzee in the hotel.
Yeah, and I saw it with I saw it with my mum and dad. I think the first time, and then I saw it a second. I ended up having to see it a second time at a birthday party because I was invited to a friend's birthday party, and they wanted to go see Dunstan Checks In again, and we'd already seen it. I think already once. So so I ended up seeing Dunstan Checks In twice.
Wow.
Anyway, so that's about 2 hours of my life I'll never get back. But, anyway, enough of that. So let's we can look at do we dare go into the awards so the Toy Story 3 awards right now on the wiki has about 57 different entries. Pretty much.
Jeez.
And we're talking about it literally got even Spike TV gave it awards.
That's right. Spike TV. Do you remember them?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we remember them. It even got it's even got Grammys. Annie Awards. Academy Awards. ITV even gave it an award. The Iowa Film Critics Association also gave it something, and the Time magazine also talked about it as well. It's like, guys, this thing was successful. Okay. There's nothing else.
There's no denying it, of how incredibly successful this movie was. It's without a doubt that Toy Story 3 was at the pinnacle hype of Pixar's career. This was like the last bit of good from Pixar for 6 years, because that was when John Lasseter left over for Disney, and that's when Disney started picking up. This is when Iron Man came out, and Princess and the Frog, Bolt, and then it would lead up to the Disney revival era with Frozen and Tangled and Wreck-It Ralph, Big Hero 6, and all that stuff. And then Pixar pretty much just went downhill with releasing mediocre movie and uninspired prequels and sequels that nobody asked for. And then eventually we had Inside Out. So, yeah, for a lot of people, this was the last movie in the golden era of Pixar.
Yeah.
And you know what?
I Also that as well. Just I really have to note this down because yeah. Do you know what the harshest review of Toy Story 3 was? Do you want me to read you a
What?
line from it?
Absolutely.
It's from the New York Post, and he says Toy Story 3, which is pointlessly being shown in 3D in most locations, may not be a masterpiece, but it still had me in tears at the end. That's the harshest thing they had to say about it. If that's the harshest thing you got to say about this, then what? That to me tells me how amazing this film is.
Well, you know what? I got one even sadder. Okay, so we already talked about the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards and about how, a particular movie wasn't won. I forget which Pixar movie it was. But anyway, in 2011, Toy Story 3 was nominated alongside with three other movies. Guess what won?
Which one won?
Despicable Me.
Oh, for goodness sake. Well, I mean,
You know what? Here's the thing. I think Despicable Me is an okay movie. I think it's a bit overrated, in my opinion. I really don't see the appeal of why it's so beloved by everybody, but I do like it okay. It's those minions that really irritate me so much.
Minions. I think here's the thing though. I think the minions back in the day, I think they were lovable. But I think now the fact that they've got their own movie, the fact that they got their own merchandise, the fact that they're kind of like they exist within their own for no reason whatsoever. I think I think they've milked the cow all the way up to death. I think with the minions.
Yeah, they milk the cows so much that they're producing powdered milk.
They're basically producing decomposing organs at this point. Like, it's that awful.
Anyway, now I remember what the other one was. WALL-E was nominated for the Kids' Choice Awards, and it lost to Madagascar 2.
Oh, yeah. Here's the thing about this. I mean, this is the Kids' Choice Awards. Keep this in mind. It's not like the Academy Awards where delegates get to vote on what they think the best thing is. It's basically a popularity contest.
Right, it is a popularity contest. You're right, but Finding Dory and Coco did win for their Kids' Choice Awards last year and this year. So it's a toss up. Yeah. But yeah, long story short, Toy Story 3 was massive, and it pretty much was like pretty much everybody who was like against sequels, everybody points this out as like the best animated sequel to a movie ever.
But here's the thing about sequels, like if you have a good story for the characters that were there, then there is no problem with the sequel. The only problem you have with a sequel is obviously when you get a situation like Cars 2 when everyone knows it's just a money grab. I've always said there should be a sequel to the Ratatouille because I think there is a story in there which shows the struggles of running a small business. I don't think there's actually ever been. I guess the only other thing I can compare it to is probably what's that dodgeball movie that that starred Will Ferrell and
oh my god, really?
That's the only thing that's the only thing that's in my head right now that I could probably compare it. A movie which basically shows a small business struggling. It's like and they have to do something basically to keep it going. I think that's the only thing I can really compare it to. But they could do that with Ratatouille in a sequel. The Incredibles 2, we're going to find out what they can do with that. And obviously there's Monsters Inc. as well, which they could censor around a more grown-up version of Boo. Or Mary.
We're still waiting for that, by the way. And like I said before, prequel of Up is also another strong possibility. So yeah, possibilities are endless.
Yeah. So there's plenty of things they can do with sequels. It's just you guys got to put a good story behind it. And if you can't put a good story behind it, then don't do it. For the love of God, don't do it. Scores. Okay, so What are we really gonna? Are we really gonna give this Toy Story 3 like a 7 or an 8 or something like that? Well, obviously, we're gonna give it a 10.
Of course, we are. Okay, absolutely.
It's their best film to date at this point, and their
highest grossing film to date anyway.
Well, I'm not gonna say it's my. I'll safely say this. I definitely will say it's not my favorite film. Of the Pixar range. I still love The Incredibles and I still love the Ratatouille over Toy Story 3. But I will say that give Toy Story its due. It's like it's run from the 90s all the way to here, and we're still talking about it now, even though it was probably 8 years ago. And it is 8 years ago. Sorry. and it's still one of their biggest films going. And
Yeah, I absolutely love this movie because, as mentioned in the episode where we talked about Toy Story and Toy Story 2, the Toy Story franchise meant a lot to me as a kid. And the fact that it was able to grow up with me, that is dedication right there. And I absolutely have to respect the franchise for doing that. So, yeah, I do hold the Toy Story franchise, very close to my heart. So, I can't give it any more higher or lower than a 10.
yeah, it's like, and again, I compare it to Michael Jackson's Thriller because I think they've captured lightning in the bottle and put it in the best place possible. And I don't think there's, I just don't think with Toy Story 3, I'd be very surprised if they're able to do it again. I'd be very surprised if they were able to. Can you really imagine, Pixar taking one of their other, their other franchises again, unless it's Ratatouille or some other one, and basically doing this again? Maybe they're going to do it with Incredibles 2. Maybe when we get there, maybe it's the theater's going to be full to the rafters, and we're going to be in the bleeding nose seats. Who knows? But I mean, if they do that with Incredibles 2, right now, I would compare Toy Story 3 to Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's going to be the one album that was massively successful and cannot be copied again. And that's just me. So that was PixMix, and I think Patricia just kind of disappeared at the last minute. So. Yeah, do apologise about that, everybody. But anyway, I'm going to close out the show, and just to let you guys know, we've got two other shows. I think we've got two other shows left. So we've got a toss-up between Brave and Monsters Inc. So those are the two left, and then after that we've got The Incredibles 2 after that. So Incredibles 2 won't come immediately, but do keep an eye out for it because it will be our last episode of PixMix, and then after that I think we'll do an overall show after that, and where we'll include a mystery guest in all of that. So, yeah. So thanks for checking out with PixMix. I've been Arun, and also in behalf of Patricia.
Sorry about that, I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Okay, so we're just about to close out the show. So,
Hold on 1 second.
No problem. Yeah, while she's doing that. So, yeah, I don't know who our mystery judge is going to be yet because, I'm still having a think about who we're going to bring in. But, we'll definitely... we won't let you know who it is as of yet until basically the last time, but we'll definitely do something with that. But anyway, so Patricia, have you come back with us?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, cool. Oh, you just come back to help us close out the show. So
yes, I am back to close out the show. Hooray!
So from me, Arun,
and Patricia,
take care and bye bye for now.
See you later.